Thank you for joining this session. Welcome to the demo session of Ariba. A quick introduction about myself. I'm Arjun. I have just about 12 years of experience in the IT industry, 6 of which are into software testing. The rest of the 6 are into Ariba consulting. So I have worked on various Ariba solutions like buying and invoicing, sourcing and contracts, SLP. I have done 2 end-to-end implementations of Ariba. Presently, I'm working with an MNC as an Ariba consultant. So that's about my experience. I'm based out of Hyderabad. So we'll understand what is procurement and what is direct procurement, what is indirect procurement, what are the solutions offered by SAP Ariba. Then we understand the source to pay cycle. Okay. So this is what we are going to see in this demo session. Okay. And we'll understand how Ariba is used for procurement. Okay. So you can stop me whenever you have any questions, guys. Okay. You need not wait until I complete anything. You can just stop me and ask your question. So let's understand what is procurement, right? So just read out this statement here, then we'll understand more about procurement. So procurement is a business function responsible for securing all the goods and services needed by any organization. So as the statement says that procurement is something which is needed or responsible for securing the goods or services by any organization. Okay. So consider you are purchasing something for your home. For example, you have to purchase groceries or you have to purchase a laptop for yourself, right? So similarly, any organization, they have their own goods and services that they need to purchase from vendors. When I say vendor, it is the supplier. Okay, we call suppliers as vendors as well. Okay, so procurement is that department or that function of any organization that is responsible to procure or purchase the goods or services that are required to run the organization. Okay. For example, if you consider, uh, let's say you have a biscuit manufacturing company, right? So to run or to manufacture the biscuits, you need the flour, right? You need sugar, you need, uh, let's say, the cover of the biscuit, right? And other equipment as well to manufacture the biscuits, right? And so these are the raw materials that are needed to manufacture the biscuit. And apart from that, you will need the machines that are required to manufacture the biscuits, right? And those machines will also need regular maintenance to ensure that they proper functionally, correct? So those maintenance will be performed by different organizations. So that is a service, correct? Agree with me on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
service means that is something given at the organization, right? So it can be sort of a maintenance service for any of the machines in the plant or any other different service. Now goods could be any goods, any physical goods, okay, that you purchase. Okay, so that in a nutshell is procurement, guys. Cool. So hope you all have understood what is procurement. Then we'll understand the types of procurement. Okay, we have direct procurement and indirect procurement. Okay, so let's understand what is direct procurement first. Then we'll go to indirect procurement. Okay. Now, procuring anything that directly supports the production of the goods a company sells, including raw materials, components, parts, services, and wholesale items. These all have an impact upon revenue, growth, and reputation. So, supplier relationships are crucial in direct procurement. So, as the statement says, that procuring anything that is directly involved in the production of the goods. For example, if we stick with the example of biscuit manufacturing company. So what is needed to manufacture the biscuit? Flour is our main component. Then we might need butter, we need sugar, and we might need baking powder as well, right? So all these raw materials are needed to manufacture the biscuit. Now biscuit is the finished good of the biscuit manufacturing company, right? So they sell the biscuits to the end customer. For example, us. When they sell the biscuit, that's how they generate revenue for their company, because biscuit is their product. Agree? Okay. So anything that goes, or any purchasing activity or any procurement activity that is directly involved in the production of a biscuit is going to fall under, or going to be categorized as, direct procurement. Okay, because that procurement is involved in the production of the finished good which a company is going to sell to its end users. Okay, understood guys, what is direct procurement?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now let's move on to indirect procurement. Okay, now it's the opposite of direct procurement. Simply put, anything that is not directly involved in the production of a finished good. Okay, now manufacturing biscuit is one aspect of a biscuit manufacturing company, right? But there will be other departments in the organization as well. For example, we'll have the IT department, we'll have the sales department, we'll have the legal department, we'll have the HR department. Correct? Now all these departments need some materials or services to perform their day-to-day activity. For example, let's consider the IT department, right? IT department cannot function without laptop, or for that matter of fact, any department these days cannot function without a laptop, right? But that laptop is not necessary to manufacture the biscuit, right? But it is necessary to run the day-to-day organization activities of the organization. Correct? Simple. See, we are in a biscuit manufacturing company, so we need sugar, butter, flour to manufacture the biscuit, right? Without those, we cannot manufacture the biscuit. If we have to procure those raw materials which are needed to manufacture the biscuit, then that is direct procurement. But apart from manufacturing the biscuit, there are other functions in the organization like sales, HR department, IT department, legal department. So all these departments need materials to do their activities. For example, laptops. Now laptops is not involved in the production of the biscuit, but that is necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the organization, right? So any activity or any procurement activity that is not directly involved in the production of the finished good, but is necessary to run the day-to-day activities of the organization, is categorized as indirect procurement. Okay, so examples can be office supplies, utilities, travel expenses. Okay, so laptops is a classic example in case of a biscuit manufacturing company, right? It is not directly involved in producing or in the manufacture of a biscuit, but it is necessary to run the organization. Okay, I'll take that as a no. So hope you have understood what is direct and indirect procurement. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we have now detailed what is procurement, what are the categories of procurement, direct versus indirect procurement. Now let's understand where Ariba, SAP Ariba helps in the world of procurement or is useful in the world of procurement. Okay. Now Ariba is mainly involved or useful for indirect procurement. Okay. Ariba applications mainly support indirect procurement, not direct procurement. Direct procurement is done in ERP systems because there is lot of activities involved in this. Ariba is a very basic, simple application when you compare it with other ERP applications like SAP, Oracle, okay, where there are a lot of functionalities involved. And indirect procurement is where Ariba is going to be helpful. Okay, so Ariba is useful in the world of indirect procurement. Okay, now let's understand why we need SAP Ariba. Okay, why do we need to go to SAP Ariba? Okay, so back in the old days, okay, before SAP Ariba or any other digital procurement application was developed, okay, people used to do this procurement activity using paper. In fact, many of the organizations still use paper procurement. Now you can imagine the amount of work that is going to be involved when you do it with paper. There is lot of offline activity when you do paper procurement, and there is no transparency when you do paper based procurement, right? There is lot of paper work involved. Let's consider you have to buy laptops for your organization. Okay, so what will you do? You will go to four different vendors or n number of different vendors. For example, HP, Dell. Okay, let me write it down, okay, so that you will be able to relate. Okay, let's say HP, Dell, Acer, Lenovo, right? So these are the major players when it comes to laptops. So you have to buy 100 laptops for your organization, okay, to run or to run
Arjun,
your day-to-day activities. Okay,
Arjun, here,
even if you consider direct procurement as well. Okay, I'm just saying
uh,
why we need any
uh,
digital procurement application. Okay, why should we replace a
uh,
paper based procurement activity? Okay, because paper based is very laborious. Okay, now consider you need 100 laptops, you don't have any digital procurement application with you. Okay, so what will you do? You will go to HP, you'll go to Dell, you'll go to Acer, you'll go to Lenovo, right? You will understand uh, their expertise. Okay, you will get the codes from them, right? You will get the codes from all these vendors, right? You will note it down on papers. Okay, you will lay down all those codes from different vendors. Okay, then you will compare the codes, right, from those vendors, right? Then finally you will select a code from one or two vendors, right? This is what you do, right? Even in your day-to-day life, if you want to purchase a laptop, right, these days we have Amazon. Okay, you will go online and you will check. But back then, when we did not have Amazon or Flipkart, you'll go to each of these vendors, write down the quotation from them, compare who is providing the best quality and at the best price, right? It is a laborious activity, right? Because we have to physically travel to those vendors and bargain with them, right? We have to do all that stuff. Similarly, even an organization has to do all that stuff, right? Agree with me?
Yes.
But with digital procurement app, what it does is you can do all these activities online, right? You can do all these activities online sitting at your desk. Okay, so that's the beauty of any digital procurement application, not just Ariba. There are other players as well, but Ariba is a major. Okay, so that's why we need any digital procurement application which will do away with any sort of paperwork, and it also brings in transparency. If you want to check the history of anything, you can very well go into the system and check what has happened with that transaction, right, from starting to end. So there is transparency involved there. Okay, so that's why we need any digital procurement application. Okay, so that's how Ariba was actually bought into the world. Okay, or so based on that strategy, that to do away with the paperwork, to bring in transparency, to expand the savings of a given organization in a procurement, and to optimize procurement activity, Ariba was developed in the year 1996. Okay, in US. Okay, a brief history about SAP Ariba. Okay, back then it was just Ariba. Okay, in 1996, Ariba was developed. Okay, later in 2012, Ariba was acquired by SAP. Okay, now Ariba is a cloud-based application. Well, what is cloud-based application? Is anyone aware what is cloud-based application? Can anyone give a try?
Yeah, then,
Yeah, I
cloud
mean,
based.
it's
See,
an
yeah,
independent, dedicated server.
I think SaaS application.
Yes, SaaS means software as a service, right? SaaS means software as a service. Now, if you consider Gmail, right? How do you access your Gmail? You just type in gmail.com, you enter your credentials, and there you are logged into Gmail application, right? Do you install any application on your system to access Gmail? No, right? You just go to a URL, you enter your credentials, and you are able to send or receive emails. So similarly, even Ariba, you can access it via a URL. Okay, URL. Okay, URL is provided by SAP Ariba. Okay, it will be a unique URL for any client. Okay, so they can log in using user ID and password, right? They need not install anything on their servers. Okay, application, hardware, software is maintained by SAP Ariba. I need not bother about any hardware, software to be installed on my servers locally. Okay, everything is taken care by SAP Ariba itself. Okay, once you purchase the license of SAP Ariba, you will given a URL. You can access that URL using user ID and password. Once you have that password, you can set up n number of users as per your requirement. Okay, so that's why it is a, so that is how it is called as a cloud based application. Okay guys, so because we are not maintaining any software, or hardware related to SAP Ariba, you are just logging in based on the credentials provided using a URL. It is a cloud-based application. Okay? So
Arjun, one small note.
as a client, we need not take care of any of those things. Okay? It is all taken care by SAP Ariba itself.
Okay.
Okay?
Arjun,
Clear? Did
one
I answer
question
your
here.
question?
Arjun, one question here.
Yes, Arjun.
Yes.
Just just to brief, you just mentioned saying that, as a biscuit manufacturer, you required a direct and indirect procurement, wherein, in
Mm-hmm.
the direct procurement for manufacturing of biscuit, you required certain things like sugar, the flour, and all these things. So that will become a direct requirement. Right? I mean, indirect would be, as you mentioned, HR, finance. That all is the part of this organization where they required, where they want to procure laptops and all that. This becomes an indirect procurement. Is that understanding is correct, or correct me if I'm wrong?
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
So let's consider a car manufacturing company. Okay, if
Okay.
it is difficult to understand a biscuit manufacturing company. Okay, car
Hmm.
manufacturing organization like
Yeah.
let's say Maruti. Okay, Maruti manufactures cars, right? Car is their car is the finished good
Finished.
of Maruti. Maruti sells cars to customers to generate revenue. Correct? Is that understood?
Yes.
Maruti
Yes. Yes.
manufactures cars and it sells cars to its customer. Now, to manufacture cars, what all is needed? Steel. We need steel, right?
Yeah.
We need nuts and bolts. We need paint. We need brake pads. We need steering wheel. We need gear lever, etc. Right? Now, we need all these raw materials to manufacture the car. Agree?
Yes.
And we need to purchase these from the vendors who are
Vendors.
going to
Yes.
supply these materials,
Correct.
right? To
Correct.
manufacture the car. I cannot manufacture steel and everything, right?
Correct.
There are different organizations who are there who supply these materials or these raw materials. Okay, they are generally called as OEMs. Okay,
Yeah.
OEM, original equipment manufacturer. Okay, now we have, for example, steel. We have Tata Steel, right?
Yeah.
Or Mittal Steel, if you are aware of it.
Yeah.
Paint we have. When it comes to car paints, there might be a different manufacturer, right? For example, Asian
Yeah.
Paints. I don't know if they offer car paints or not, but for example, I'm saying, right? So I need to procure all these materials to manufacture car, correct? Now
Correct.
all these materials are involved in manufacturing the car. That means any procurement activity involved in manufacturing the car is direct procurement. Okay,
Yeah.
now manufacturing cars is just one aspect of Maruti, right? you
Correct.
you just manufacture the car and you sit there. It's not going to work like that, right? You need to sell
Correct.
the car as well, correct?
Correct.
Now to sell the car you need people, right? You need your sales
Yes.
department. Agree?
Yeah. Yes.
For example, I'm just saying, okay, now sales department need some other equipment, right, to do their day-to-day activity,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Example, laptop. They need laptop, they need chairs, they need internet connection, they need they need glasses to drink water, right? They need pen, they need paper, all these they need, correct, to do their
Correct.
activities. But all these are not required to manufacture the car itself, correct? Agree?
Correct. Correct.
But they are needed to run the organization, right? So that means any activity which is not directly involved in manufacturing the car, or for example any finished good, is called indirect procurement. Any procurement activity which is not directly involved or not responsible for manufacturing the finished good is called indirect procurement. Understood?
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone clear with the difference between direct and indirect procurement? Okay, so we understood what is direct procurement, what is indirect procurement. We know what are the examples of direct procurement, indirect procurement. Direct procurement examples like procuring steel to manufacture the car. Indirect procurement like laptops, right? Then we have tables or slash office supplies, right? Which are not directly involved in manufacturing the car itself, but are needed for the internal use of organization. Okay, so that's indirect procurement. Okay, so Ariba is used for indirect procurement. Okay, Ariba is used in the area of indirect procurement. Okay, now let's understand what are the solutions offered by SAP Ariba. Okay, we have SAP Ariba sourcing, SAP Ariba contracts, SAP Ariba SLP, SAP Ariba buying and invoicing, P2P cycle procure to pay, SAP Ariba buying procure to order. Okay, now we'll understand what is the source to pay cycle and how each of these solutions can be used in the source to pay cycle offered by SAP Ariba. Okay, does anyone have any idea what is source to pay? You can just give it
It's a
based on generic. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's try to understand the source to pay cycle. Okay, so we have sourcing, the first activity, then we have contract management, we have ordering, and then payment. Okay, so just a brief on the sourcing, what exactly happens in sourcing. Finding and evaluating potential suppliers, finding and negotiating with suppliers. Okay, this is what happens in sourcing. Okay, I'll explain this in detail, don't worry. Okay, so just for now understand that we do market analysis where we evaluate potential suppliers, then we negotiate with the suppliers in supplier identification phase. These two activities form part of sourcing. Okay, then we do the contract negotiation, which is performed in contract management, where we are negotiating a contract with the supplier. Then in ordering, we place the orders for the goods and services from approved suppliers. Then finally we make the payment, which is paying for the goods or services that the supplier has offered. Okay, now there are two terminology here. Okay, two parties involved. Okay, one is buyer, the other one is supplier or vendor. These are the two key parties which are involved in the S2P or source to pay cycle. One is buyer, who is procuring slash purchasing slash buying goods or services needed for their organization, right? So buyer is the one who is responsible for procuring, purchasing or buying goods or services for their organization. Okay. Now supplier, from whom this buyer is going to buy? From the supplier or the vendor. Supplies the goods or services to the buyer. Okay, clear with these two terms, buyer and supplier or vendor? Any question here?
Clear,
Okay. Now with these two terms or with these two parties established, let's talk about sourcing. Okay, the first activity in the source to pay cycle. What is sourcing? What do you generally understand by the term sourcing? Anyone? Just give it a try.
Sourcing is something where we will be sourcing the vendors for the product for anything. Like we'll be sourcing the vendors only.
Okay. Yeah, close. Okay. So let's understand what is sourcing. Sourcing is that aspect of S2P cycle where we identify the source of the goods and services. Okay. Simply put, right? Simple usage. Identifying the source of the goods or services. That is called sourcing. Let's understand this with example. Okay. So you need, let's say, 100 laptops for your IT department. Okay. Now we have a car manufacturing company. We are a car manufacturing company, and we, of course, we need IT services as well, right? We'll need people who work in the IT department. So we need 100 laptops for the people who are going to work in the IT department. Now that is our requirement or request. Okay. Now with this request or requirement, what I will do, identify, or I will go into the market and evaluate the potential suppliers for these 100 laptops, right? I will not go and purchase these 100 laptops just like that or place the order just like that, correct? Because I have my own requirements and I need to ensure that I purchase these 100 laptops at the best price with best quality, right? Best price and best quality. Agree? So these are the two major parameters that you consider whenever you are purchasing anything. Agree?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I do is I first evaluate the suppliers in the market. Okay. So for example, I will so there are let's say 5 suppliers. Okay, Dell, Acer, Lenovo, HP, Microsoft. Okay, now these are the 5 major vendors for laptops. Okay, now I want to understand more details about these suppliers. So what I will do, I'll create an RFI, request for information. Okay, I'll create a request for information. Okay, meaning I'll ask some basic questions to understand more details about these suppliers. Okay, I'm just giving 5 as an example. It can be more than 5. Okay, or let's say 10. Okay, but we know we'll only list these 5 major suppliers. Let's say I have invited 10 suppliers. Okay, for this RFI, invite 10 suppliers for RFI. Okay, so where you are seeking more information from these suppliers. Okay, from these 10 suppliers. Okay, suppliers respond to the RFI. Okay, I'll write it RFI. Now in this RFI, as it says, request for information, I am not asking anything regarding price details here. Okay, please bear in mind. Okay, I'm not talking anything about the price here. I'm just trying to understand more about these suppliers. Okay, I have certain criteria. Okay, based on which I want to select the vendor. Okay, for example, you apply for a job, guys. Okay, you are not the only one, right, who applies for the job, right? There will be n number of candidates to apply for the job. Agree? You submit your resume. Likewise, there are other people who are going to submit their resumes for that particular job. Okay, consider 100 laptops as that job. Okay, I'm trying to draw a parallel. Okay, here. Okay, try to understand that. You can stop me anywhere if you have any questions. Now, whenever there is a job posted, there are hundreds of candidates who apply for that job. How is the recruiter going to shortlist out of those 100 people based on the resume? Agree? Initial scrutiny is done based on the resume. They check the job description, they check your resume. Based on that, they shortlist certain candidates for further rounds. Agree with me?
Yes.
Clear? Now, that's how, similarly, request for information is a similar sort of activity in the world of procurement. For my 100 laptops, I have invited 10 suppliers to understand more about these 10 suppliers. Okay. Now, based on, so suppliers respond to this RFI, correct? And then, based
Yes.
on the responses, the buyer shortlists 5 suppliers for RFP. RFP stands for request for proposal, or you can also call it as request for quotation, RFQ. Okay, so what did I do initially? My requirement is 100 laptops. To know more information about the 10 major vendors in the market, I have sent an invitation for RFI, which is request for information. All those 10 suppliers, say 10 suppliers, respond to the RFI that I have created. Based on the responses, I shortlisted 5 suppliers for the next round. You can consider it as next round. Okay, like interview, you have more than one round, right? First will be your technical round, second will be your management round. Now, based on your responses that you give in your technical round, you will be either rejected or selected for the next round, correct? So similarly here as well, based on the responses, I have shortlisted 5 suppliers for the next round, which is RFP. Now here in RFP or RFQ, I am going to understand the pricing of the laptops. Okay, so as the name says, request for proposal or request for quotation, I'm seeking their quotes for the 100 laptops. Okay, any questions, guys?
No.
Clear?
Yes.
So in RFQ, I am understanding the pricing for 100 laptops with these 5 suppliers. Okay. Now suppliers respond with their quotes. Okay. Now based on the quotation, I'll say buyer shortlist 3 suppliers, okay, for the next round, which is usually going to be called as auction. Okay. So based on the request for proposal responses from these 5 suppliers, I have shortlisted 3 suppliers for the next round, which is an auction. Now, I believe you all know how an auction is conducted, right? How is it conducted? Generally, let's consider you are going to buy a second hand car. Okay. And there are n number of people in the auction event. So you will say that I am ready to pay, let's say 1 lakh rupees for the second hand car, right? Similarly, another person will say, okay, I am ready to give 1,10,000. Someone else will say, I am ready to give 1,20,000. So it is a competitive event, right, among the buyers, correct?
Yeah.
And the supplier or the seller will intend to get the best price for his car. Okay. Now, similarly, here I am the buyer of the 100 laptops. So my intention would be to buy laptop at least possible price, correct? I want to purchase anything. When I'm purchasing anything, I want to purchase it at the least possible price. When I'm selling anything, I want to do it at the best possible price or the maximum possible price. Agree? So here we are buying something. We are buying 100 laptops from the suppliers. So I conduct an auction event among these 3 suppliers. Okay. Suppliers respond with their bids. We call it as bids. Okay. So one supplier will say, okay, per laptop, I'll charge you, let's say 75 USD. The other will say, I will charge you 65 USD. Okay. The one more person will say 80 USD. Okay. So like this, these 3 suppliers bid for these laptops by submitting their bids. Okay. Now based on the bids received from the suppliers, I will finally choose 2 suppliers. Okay. Let's say Dell and Lenovo to supply laptops for buyer. Okay. So what did we do in the sourcing? First, it all starts with the requirement or request. What was our requirement? 100 laptops. So as I said, sourcing is identifying the source of the goods or services. So in our case, our goods is laptops, right? So I went into the market. Okay. I know that there are 10 major vendors for laptops. So I prepared an RFI. I invited these 10 major vendors for RFI. Then those suppliers responded to the RFI. RFI meaning request for information. There is no pricing details here. Based on the responses to this RFI, I have shortlisted 5 suppliers for the next round, which is request for proposal or request for quotation, RFQ. Here I am asking the pricing details for the laptops. Suppliers respond with their quotes based on the quotation. Then I shortlist 3 suppliers for the next round out of the 5. So we had 10 initially. Then I have shortlisted it to 5 in the second round, which is RFP. Then I shortlisted based on the responses of their quotes. I have shortlisted 3 suppliers for the next round, which is auction. So in the auction, suppliers respond with their bids. Okay. Now based on these bids, I have finally chosen 2 suppliers, Dell and Lenovo, to supply the laptops for me. Okay. So that means I have fulfilled my obligation to identify the supplier, right? From starting to end. That's what we did, right? Sourcing is identifying the source of the goods. Now, at the end of all these, I have identified the source. Who is the source? Dell and Lenovo for the laptops. Agreed, guys? Any question here?
Yes.
So, I have
Understood. Yeah.
fulfilled my obligation to identify the goods using sourcing. Now, consider there is no application or a digital procurement application with me. I have to do all these activities using paper. Just imagine the amount of work or the paperwork that would be involved. And there are chances that I will scatter all that paper somewhere and I will not be able to track what I have done. And I might end up selecting the wrong supplier. I might buy the laptop at a higher price without a digital procurement application. But with SAP Ariba sourcing module, okay, using SAP Ariba sourcing module, I can sit at my desk, I can use my team, and I can send the RFI, I can conduct RFP, I can conduct RFQ, I can conduct auction, all using my SAP Ariba sourcing application sitting at my desk. Okay. And I can also go and check, compare the bids digitally. And whenever I want to come back and check, the information is readily available for me in the system. Okay. So that's how using SAP Ariba sourcing module, I can conduct the sourcing activities and identify the goods or identify the source of the goods or services. Clear?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the use of SAP Ariba sourcing module. Okay, now we have completed the sourcing activity, right? We have identified the source. We have finalized the suppliers. Now next comes the contract management. So what do we do in contract management? Now let's say you are purchasing a land or a flat, right? Sorry, flat. What do you do? So you do the similar activity, right? You go and check different properties within your budget. You finalize 1 or 2 properties. Then you negotiate the terms and conditions, right? Terms and conditions are negotiated and documented on the sale agreement, right? That is what we do on a sale agreement, right? If you purchase a flat or a land, you would have had that experience that we document all these terms and conditions on a sale agreement. Now similarly, when I have to purchase something from a supplier, for example here 100 laptops, I am going to purchase it for the organization. Here let's say Maruti is the organization. Now I will want to make sure that there are certain terms and conditions established with the supplier, and even the supplier wants me to adhere to their terms and conditions. Agree? It's not just okay, I have identified the supplier, I am going to pay the money to them and they are going to supply me the laptops. No, it's not going to work like that in the real time, right? There will be certain terms and conditions. I want to document all those terms and conditions and I want to ensure that both parties, meaning buyer and the supplier, agree to those terms and conditions and are legally bind to those terms and conditions, right? So I can do all that using Ariba's contract management or contracts module. So that's what happens in contract management. Okay, I create a contract. Okay, establish the terms and conditions. I or buyer sends this contract to the supplier for negotiation, right, or review. Supplier suggests changes or accepts the contract. Okay, so and contract is signed. Okay, this is what we generally do, right? Even when you purchase anything, for example flat or land. So in our case it is purchasing the laptops. So we have established or we have finalized Dell and Lenovo as my suppliers. So I established certain terms and conditions for purchasing the laptops with them. I send that contract or the terms and conditions via a contract to the supplier. Supplier will go through the terms and conditions mentioned on that contract. If he is okay with, if he or she is okay with the terms mentioned, they will accept to that contract and sign the contract. If they are not okay with certain terms and conditions, they will say that, hey, this particular section or this particular clause I'm not okay, can you please amend that? Okay, so accordingly the buyer will also change, or they will then come up with their own clause. Okay, or they will simply reject. Anything can happen, right? So all these activities are part of contract management phase of the S2P cycle. Okay, we have identified the supplier here, then we are establishing the contract with the supplier here. Okay, now SAP Ariba contracts can be used to do all these activities. Okay, create a contract. I can send the contract to the supplier. Supplier can go through the contract. They can suggest any changes or they can accept the contract. And supplier can also digitally sign the contract as well. Okay. So all these activities I can do using my SAP or using the SAP Ariba contracts solution. That's the use of SAP Ariba contracts. Okay. So now we have finalized the supplier here using sourcing. Then we have established the contract using Ariba contracts. So we have completed these two activities. The next activity is ordering, and then last activity is payment. So ordering. So what is ordering? Right? Now you have requested for 100 laptops. Now it's in the real world, you will not going to order all the 100 laptops in a single go, right? Based on your requirement, let's say you need initially 10 laptops because 10 new hires are going to join the organization, right? So you will not order the 100 laptops in a single go. Okay, that's not how it is going to work in real time. Okay, you establish a contract. Okay, now 100 laptops is just a number. Okay, I can go beyond 100 laptops as well. Okay, if I am okay with the supplier is sending the laptops at the agreed price and they are sending the laptops on the agreed date. So I can go very well beyond 100 laptops as well. And in real time, as I said, so you will not order all the 100 laptops in a single go, right? So in your organization, whenever a new guy joins, right, so they will get the laptop. If there is a chance that the stock is not available. So that means they are not going to place the order for 100 laptops, right? Because it's a single guy, they will only place the order for one laptop, right? Agree? Any confusion, guys? Let's say initially you need 10 laptops, okay? So what you do in ordering is, in this stage, what you do is initially you create a purchase requisition. Now what is a purchase requisition? I'll call it as a PR, okay? PR contains information like the product, quantity, price, supplier, ship to location, delivery date, etc. Okay. Now we have identified the supplier, we have created the contract. Next part is sending the orders to the supplier so that the supplier can send the goods to us. In our case, it is laptops. So how can the supplier send the goods? Based on a purchase order. But purchase order is not the initial document, okay? Usually a purchase requisition is created, okay? Now what does that purchase requisition contain? It contains information like what is the product that I am going to purchase, what is the quantity that I am going to purchase, or how much quantity I need of this product, and what is the price of that item, who is going to supply me that product, where should the goods ship to location, meaning where should the goods be delivered, delivery date, when I need that goods, okay? All these information is present on the PR or purchase requisition. Now bear in mind, this is an internal document, okay? Meaning it is not sent to anyone external to the buying organization, okay? A purchase requisition is created by a procurement agent, okay? There are people in the organization who are responsible to buy the laptops, correct? Like we as IT guys are responsible for the IT operations. There will be someone in the organization who is responsible for doing the procurement activity. Agree? So that team in the procurement department, they will create a purchase requisition using any digital procurement application. So in our case, it will be SAP Ariba. So what does that what does that purchase requisition contain? It contains all this information, okay? Then PR is submitted, okay? Now once the PR is submitted, it will go through an approval. Now why is this approval needed? Why should anyone approve the purchase? Now consider, okay, you are buying a mobile for yourself, okay, but you don't have the finances to buy the mobile, okay? So what will you do before placing the order on Amazon or Flipkart? You will either go to your mother or your father or your brother who is in a position to finance your mobile. Agree? You will not directly place it, right? You will seek their approval. Hey mom, hey dad, or hey brother, I like this mobile. Can you please purchase this for me, right? You will, because you don't have the finances with you, right? You will not buy it directly, right? You will seek their approval before purchasing it. So similarly, as these laptops are needed for the, who is going to use these laptops? It is the car manufacturing company Maruti, right? It is not for personal use, right? So when something is going to be purchased, there needs to be transparency where that amount is going to be spent. that amount is belonging to the organization. It's not a personal amount, right? So that's why someone in the organization should be in a position to review this purchase requisition document. Okay, once the PR is submitted with all this information, it will go through an approval. Now that person will review the information present on this document. Okay, whether all the information is exactly entered or not, whether this purchase requisition is actually required or not. Okay, then they will either approve or reject. Okay, in most cases they will approve the PR. Once the PR is approved, PR is purchase requisition, a purchase order is generated. Okay, purchase order is, we call it as PO. Okay, a PO number is generated. Now this PO is the document which is transmitted to the supplier. Okay, let's say in our case it is Dell. Okay, supplier receives the PO and confirms the order. Okay, he will receive the PO. Okay, he'll check that, okay, these guys need 10 laptops. Okay, he'll check his stock and he will say, acha, theek hai, I have 10 laptops with me. And he will say that, okay, theek hai, I have confirmed the order, I am going to ship the goods to you. Okay, then supplier sends the 10 laptops to the buyer. Now where does the supplier send these 10 laptops? That information is already present on the ship to, right, which is there on the PR. Okay, now when the PO is created, all the information that is present on purchase requisition is automatically transmitted or transferred onto the PO document. Okay, nothing is manual on the PO document. Whatever is there in PR, the same gets transmitted or transferred onto PO, and the same information will then go to the supplier. Okay, so based on the ship to information present on the PO, which is coming from the PR, the supplier then sends the 10 laptops to the buyer. Buyer will receive the goods, right? Then supplier sends the invoice. Buyer makes the payment. Okay, so what are we doing here in ordering? In the ordering phase, we are actually ordering the items or sending the orders to the supplier, and we are finally receiving the goods in this ordering phase, right? So that is what we have done, right? In sourcing phase, we have identified the supplier. In contract management phase, we have established the terms and conditions with the supplier. Then in ordering, we have created a purchase requisition for 10 laptops. The supplier, a PO using a purchase requisition, we have created a request for 10 laptops. We have entered all this information. What is the product here? In our case, it is laptops. How much quantity we need? It is 10. What is the price of the laptop? Who is the supplier? Where the laptops need to be delivered? And by when we need that laptops. All that information is entered on the PR, which is purchase requisition. That PR is submitted. Then someone in the organization who is designated to approve this PR will go through the document, ensure everything is fine on that document, and then approve the PR. Once the PR is approved, a purchase order is automatically generated, okay, which is called as PO. Purchase order stands for PO. then PO is transmitted to the supplier. Supplier received the PO and he will confirm the order. Finally, supplier sends the laptops to the buyer. Buyer will receive the goods. Supplier sends the invoice and buyer makes the payment. All this is happening using our Ariba buying and invoicing or buying application. Okay, so to do the activities in the ordering and payment phases of S2P cycle, we can use SAP Ariba buying or SAP Ariba buying and invoicing solutions. Okay, so with that, we have seen all the phases and all the activities that are performed in the source to pay cycle. So we started with sourcing, where we have identified the supplier, we have established the contract in contract management, we have placed the order, we have received the goods, and we have made the payment using all these solutions of SAP Ariba. So that's how we can use these SAP Ariba solutions to perform the activities involved in the source to pay cycle. Discuss about Ariba SLP, right? So SLP stands for Supplier Life Cycle Management. So using SLP, okay, so we have identified the supplier using sourcing, we have established the contracts using Ariba contracts, we have purchased and we have made the payment using all the other solutions of SAP Ariba. But what is your use of Ariba SLP? So in Ariba SLP, we manage the suppliers or vendors, right? So in SAP Ariba sourcing, we are identifying the source, right? That means I am, for example, I need 100 laptops, so I need to invite 10 suppliers. That means those suppliers need to be available in my system, right? In the Ariba system. Only then I can send an invitation to them, right? I need to know them, right? I need to have their contact details. I need to know their name. I need to know their email address so that I can send an invitation to them to participate in any sort of event that is related to me. So for that, I use my SAP Ariba SLP, where I can create vendors. I can manage the vendors. I can monitor their performance. Okay, so to do all these activities, I will use my Ariba SLP module. Now, why do I need to monitor the performance of any vendor? For example, consider you are purchasing sugar from let's say 2 different vendors. Okay, for your, okay, I'll write it down here. Or you are purchasing steel from 2 different vendors. Okay, you have established the contract, everything is done, and you are already purchasing steel from 2 different vendors. Okay, one of the vendor is not sending the goods on time. Okay, they are delaying the shipment. So what will happen if the shipment is delayed? Your output is eventually going to be delayed, right? You have promised to your vendor that or to your customer that I am going to deliver something on this time. But if you don't have the material that is going to be used in procuring or manufacturing that thing, then how are you going to uh, deliver that on time, right? So to do all these activities, I can use my Ariba SLP. So internal, yes, but we can also interact the vendors as well here. Interact with the vendors as well. When I'm monitoring their performance, I want to let them know that how they are performing, right? So that they can improve, right? I should give them that chance to improve. And as well as, let's say there is a vendor ABCD. Okay. uh, they have changed their name from ABCD to BCD. I need to update that in my system, right? How will I know that the vendor has changed their information, their name? Vendor has to communicate to me that, right? Agree?
Got it.
Yeah. And even let's say they have changed their address. For example, they were in Hyderabad earlier, in Amirpet. Okay. Now from Amirpet, they moved to a different location in Patancheru. How will I know that? Vendor has to communicate to me, right? So using Ariba SLP, I can manage all these details of the vendors. Okay. Clear?
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
This is the first one that we input before sourcing.
You mean to say SLP?
Yeah.
Yes, you can say that. You
Okay.
first need to create the vendor in the system so that you can invite them for any sourcing activity. Without data in the system, how can I invite them to sourcing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. Clear? Is that
Yes.
answer clear? Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yes. You
Oh,
answer my question. I
yeah.
have one more question.
Yes,
So
please.
there's you have mentioned both SAP Ariba buying and invoicing, and also another one SAP Ariba buying, just buying.
Just fine.
So why is that difference?
Okay.
What is it?
Yeah. So let's consider only SAP Ariba buying. Okay. Here, as I mentioned here that it is procure to order. I'm not talking anything related to payment here or invoicing. So procure to order means I can create a purchase order. That purchase order will be sent to the supplier. Supplier will then send the goods and I will receive the goods. That's where it stops with SAP Ariba buying. Supplier cannot send the invoice because I am not having the invoicing part here. Okay. So to send the invoice or to receive the invoice into my buying system, I have to use this SAP Ariba buying and invoicing solution. I cannot use SAP Ariba buying. There are many clients who use just the SAP Ariba buying solution. They do the invoicing part in the ERP system. And there are many clients who do the invoicing as well in Ariba. But to do the invoicing part, they need this solution, SAP Ariba buying and invoicing. Understood?
Got it.
Yeah. So here it says procure to pay, right? So it's the end-to-end flow of the procurement. But here it's just procure to order. I can only do the receiving part from placing the order to receiving the goods. I cannot receive the invoice. But using this solution, I can even handle the invoices as well. Okay. Okay. So in direct procurement, now in indirect procurement, it's a very simple activity. Okay. Now, if you consider laptops, right? So we just need to identify the supplier and you will place the order, the supplier will send the goods. When it comes to direct procurement, it's not that simple. Okay. There are n number of activities involved in direct procurement. For example, consider, let's say you need steel. Okay. Steel for your, for manufacturing the car. Okay. Now you have 3 to 4 vendors in your system. Okay. Now it's not like you place the order today and the vendor is going to deliver the item immediately. So they need to check the stock internally. They need to plan there to fulfill your order, because based on your requirement itself, they will be ready to ship the steel to you. They are not going to waste their money expecting order from you, right? They need to plan accordingly. They need to understand when are you going to send the require the order for steel. Now, how is that order for steel going to, or on what factor that order for steel is going to depend on your sales, right? You need to be able to forecast your sales that in the next quarter I'm going to sell these many cars, right? To manufacture these many cars, I need this much amount of steel. This is all forecasting, right? That you need to be able to do. Correct? Agree with me?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, without that estimation, I will not blindly place the order with the supplier. Correct? Because steel is something which is very costly. Agree? So I need to
Yes.
estimate uh, very, I would say, accurately to buy the item from the supplier. Otherwise, that steel is going to lie in my factory with no use, and I have spent millions of dollars on that. Now, all that capability of planning the and managing the inventory, Ariba does not have it. Now, when you receive the steel, you are not going to place it anywhere. Are you aware of warehouse management?
Yes.
Storage locations, everything, right? Now, in direct
Yes.
procurement, all these comes into picture, right? You will store
Yes.
that
Right.
item somewhere in your warehouse. But with indirect procurement, of course, you will store it somewhere, but it's not as detailed as your direct procurement or steel. Now, laptop is a very simple item, right? You can store it anywhere. Or even, for example, if you consider office supplies, when I say office supplies, your pens, your notebooks, everything, you need not do any sort of put away strategies for them, right? You can store it somewhere, correct?
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So Ariba does not have that capability to handle all the other aspects of direct procurement: planning, warehouse management, inventory management. All these are part of direct procurement, but Ariba does not have that capability. That's why Ariba is used only for indirect procurement. Did I answer your
Okay.
question?
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So many of the organizations do direct procurement in the ERP system, which actually has the capability to integrate all these other aspects with procurement. There will be logistics as well involved in direct procurement. Okay. Thank you for joining this session.